Having children should not be exclusive to the wealthy. I'm pro-choice, and right now this woman feels like she doesn't have a choice. She feels like she has to abort, and we made it that way. Pro-lifers, if you want to see abortion rates go down, give women the option to keep their baby. Livable wages, free healthcare. Persecuting this woman isn't the activism that you think it is.
Today, Victoria Hammett will be joining us. She's an influential TikToker, and she is from Dallas, Texas. Hey, Victoria, thank you for joining us.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us today. Oh my God, I'm meeting a celebrity.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good, yes. This podcast is exciting. I took it from Aiden Cohn-Murphy. How did you meet him, by the way?
Super random. I just kind of got on political TikTok and Matt, do you know Matthew Rain?
Yes.
Yeah, Matt asked me to be a part of the Dem Hype House, and that's how I got connected with all of them, including Aiden. And then obviously me and him started working together for Gen Z for Change.
The Democratic Hype House, for our listeners, because I guess we can start the podcast now. Let's record.
Yeah.
It's so much cooler than the Republican Hype House. Like our content, yes. Like we actually focus on substantive issues. Like
yes.
Oh my God, it's so cringy, the Republican Hype House. But speaking of Republicans, I wanted to ask you, having been raised in a conservative household, at what point in your life did you begin to really reevaluate your beliefs? And how would you advise other young people who are living with conservatives or who are just getting started into researching their own values? Like, how did you learn to embrace your own opinions?
Yeah, so for me, while my parents did raise me to be Republican and conservative, my parents' biggest aspiration for me was that I would be very well educated, and they always encouraged me to think critically and to stand up for what I believe in. So whenever I was younger, I identified as a Republican because, that's what my parents were doing, and I thought they were the smartest people in the world. And so once I got to middle school, in sixth grade, I believe, I was in this class that was meant to kind of like make students think critically. So we had an assignment where we created our own political party. And so I created my policies, and I quickly realized that they aligned far more with the Democratic Party. And ironically, at this time, the only topic that I was still conservative on was pro-life versus pro-choice, just because I had been fed so much propaganda from the church. And
same. I was pro-life at one point too, and continue.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's an interesting trend with people that I see on the left, because I do think that and I'm not saying this to be like, we're so great and everything, but a lot of times more left-leaning policies are rooted in empathy. So you get fed this propaganda that abortions are killing babies, and especially when you're young and you haven't done the research to understand, nor do you have the life experience to understand why someone might get an abortion. Obviously it's going to make you want to be pro-life. And so I was pro-life, and then a girl in my group was like, hey, I'm pro-choice. I really think that you should educate yourself more about this topic. And I did, and I ended up switching those beliefs as well. That's
great. Yeah, no, because changing political beliefs at a young age is hard. And then when you became more liberal, did you embrace more leftist ideas from then on? And also in talking to conservatives, do you re-enter a more liberal mindset away from a leftist mindset in order to talk to them?
My political journey was interesting, and this is not something I'm proud of, but for a hot minute, I was calling myself a libertarian because, again, I was uneducated. I thought I was just socially liberal and fiscally Republican, as if that's, a thing. And so I identified as libertarian for a while until healthcare. That was the biggest issue that made me actually want to research the policies that I was advocating for. And it made me want to look into the Libertarian Party because they have a lot of beliefs regarding education, for example, that I just absolutely disagree with. As someone who went to public school my whole life until switching to private, I honestly preferred public school. Mm-hmm. And I think libertarians' outlook on public school is just absolutely atrocious. But it was healthcare specifically for me that made all of my ideology, including fiscal, lean more heavily left. And at that point, I was somewhat of a neoliberal. I was all about reform. And you know, classic, like I went from not liking Obama because I thought I was a Republican to just loving Obama. And then as I educated myself further, I went even further left. I started criticizing Obama, Biden, etc. And now I've actually found that it is easier to talk to my conservative family members because at the very least they know that, you know, I'm not subscribing to voter ID. I'm not just worshiping the Democratic Party like so many Republicans worship the Republican one. I do genuinely try to think critically about the people I'm voting for.
That's interesting because I feel like a lot of like resistance Twitter thinks that by talking to conservatives through a more moderate political lens will lend them credibility. But I've actually found that like the general cynicism that a lot of leftists have of like the Democratic and Republican establishments actually really rings true with like Trump voters. And I feel like we have to dispel this notion that like centrism in the Joe Manchin form is what's going to expand our base. And like you think that through or by electing more progressive candidates to state and federal office, like we can actually get more like anti-establishment Republicans on our side? Or is that too far out? Is that too much of like a reach?
I don't think so. I mean, I think handing over the anti-establishment ideology to the Republican Party would just be a horrible move because I think that that's something that most Americans can get behind. Nobody likes corruption and nobody likes being exploited. And so if you've already got someone to a point where they do understand that corruption and establishment exists, then you can push them a bit further to understand how they are a part of the system as well and how they are being exploited. So I would say, and just in general, when we look at like Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders, for example, both of them were demonized by conservative media as being radical socialists. But you take someone like Biden, who made horrible decisions in terms of like the 1994 crime bill, and you compare him to Bernie, somebody who was protesting for civil rights back in the day. And it's just no question which candidate we should have thrown our support behind because we look like hypocrites, quite frankly, throwing our support behind Biden fully.
Right, there's like a cognitive dissonance. It's like as a party we say, oh, we're firmly behind criminal justice reform, but then we elect someone who literally wrote the foundations of mass incarceration into law. And it's like, I think voters pick up on that. And I feel like it's like, it's kind of elitist to just say, oh, well, he's a moderate, so like they're gonna come around to him. Like, it's deeper than that. And I agree. But I would say like, so once you got involved in discovering your own politics, like how did you get civically engaged? Like what organizations did you work with? And like, how did you come across TikTok as like a platform that could sway a lot of minds? And like, when you started posting videos on TikTok, did you have a motivation to say like, oh, I'm going to use this as like a political platform? Or like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so for me, with all my beliefs, I've always just tried to live my life in a way that expresses my values and my beliefs. When I was younger, I was, you know, showing God's love to others by volunteering at the food bank and the clothing drive. And then whenever I got to college, I was more aware of systemic inequality. And being at University of Southern California, for example, we're a very rich school and a very impoverished community, right, which has always upset me. We're kind of in this bubble. So I signed up to be a part of the JEP program, the Joint Education Program, which allowed USC students to go volunteer at local public schools to help give the teachers a hand because a lot of those classrooms are just jam-packed with too many students because these schools don't have the budget to hire more teachers. And so just getting involved in like community outreach stuff like that, I found was the best way that I could kind of live my values more authentically.
Right, interesting. And is the Joint Education Program, like, is that kind of like, not copied, but like, you know, are similar organizations around at other schools that are in gentrified areas? Like I know UPenn, I'm sure there are. And actually, this leads to another question. So you have that question in there. What do you say to people that believe that volunteering within an official political structure like a party is less beneficial than actually engaging directly to address poverty, like participating in mutual aid funds? Like, what do you say to the criticism that giving campaigns money and parties money is harmful because it takes away from organizations that participate in like mutual aid organizations?
I would say, you know, of course, if you're able to, there's no reason why you can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Helping out mutual aid organizations is incredibly important. And I do think that that immediate outrage should probably take priority. But at the same time, if we want to see genuinely good people who are not bought out by corporations and lobbyists get elected, if we want to see true progressives get elected, people who are from the working class and who know the working class, then we've just got to donate to their campaigns. So if you're not personally able to donate, still getting involved with the campaign and trying to encourage others to do so, I think can be really helpful as well.
Yeah, so it's not like an either or, because some of my friends on the left, like, they make fun of me because I do look like a neolib on my Instagram account. But it's like you can participate in both. Like we can work with the federal government we have and the political structures we have, and then also address poverty directly.
100%.
Yeah, and my next question is, I'm sorry, we'll edit this part out because
You're fine, no worries at all.
How has your TikTok account grown? And what do you find resonates with our generation? What kind of communication are they most receptive to? And like, how do you film these TikToks in a way that isn't condescending and can actually like get conservatives sometimes to understand your viewpoint?
Thank you. Yeah. Well, and to answer your question earlier that I just realized I forgot to answer, I started my TikTok as like a makeup video, like story time type of TikTok until 2020 hit. And then I was just like, you know, I have a platform of about 50,000 followers. I really need to use it to promote good. And so that's when I started talking about politics. And after that point, I just continued educating myself. And I just realized that having a platform is way, like, I just had way too much of an opportunity to try and share these beliefs and encourage people to, you know, donate or sign petitions. And I didn't want to waste that. Sorry. I didn't want to waste that. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how I got involved with political TikTok. And as far as not being condescending, you know, obviously I think that there's some conservatives who'd probably disagree with you on that. For me, I think people just really like to watch videos that can help give them the tools to deal with some of the conservatives in their life too. Because, you know, a conservative might see my video and roll their eyes, but if
so like your target person is probably not a conservative. It's probably like, it's someone who is maybe from Texas like you in a conservative community, and it's giving them the tools to, you know, talk to conservatives. So yeah, okay.
Oh, 100%. And also just knowing that they're not alone in those communities. I mean, I know, especially if you're like a part of the LGBTQ plus community and other groups that tend to be tormented in these like conservative high schools, one of which like was one that I go to. Like kids were awful and they were horrible to me. Just letting those kids know, like, you're not alone. You know, here's kind of your armor you can wear into school. These people around you are idiots. They're hateful because they don't know what they're talking about. And so, yeah, I would say that my target audience is probably people on the left. And hopefully I can also reach some people who want to change their minds or at least open to doing that.
Yeah, no, and that's inspiring that like you didn't start out as a political account. Because could you imagine if like Bryce Harper, is that his name? Bryce Harper, he's a famous TikToker.
Bryce Hall?
Bryce Hall. I said Bryce Harper. Or like, can you imagine? I know, I don't go on TikTok that much. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Aiden.
I feel you. I feel like an old person on TikTok. I like never know what's going on.
Anyway, could you imagine if like Bryce Hall or Charlie D'Amelio like actually use their platforms to speak out against social injustice? Like there's so much potential
100%.
on the app. Oh, and speaking of the South, I have a question. What do you say, and like, how do you talk to Democrats that like make fun of the South and view it as like irredeemable? Like, yeah, I'm thinking of tweets after the hurricane that hit Texas, and even after the power outage in Texas this past February. Some liberals, especially on Resistance Twitter, were making jokes about, you know, Texas and Florida getting hit by natural disasters. Like, what do you say to those Democrats?
Well, we just have to remember that, especially because gerrymandering and voter suppression is so prevalent, not only in the United States, but specifically in Texas, people are not actually represented well by their representatives. You know, this idea that Texas deserved a natural disaster because of their elected officials, it would be the same notion as if, you know, the US deserved COVID-19 because we had Donald Trump as our president. It's harmful and it's hurtful, and it's completely ignoring the people in marginalized groups in Texas who are, one, not having their voices heard, and two, are having to deal with hatred every single day. And it's classist as well, just because the people who were primarily affected by that natural disaster were people in the working class who are either, you know, possibly not able to vote, or they do vote and their vote doesn't mean anything because of gerrymandering.
Right, no, definitely. And speaking of Texas, like, I just watched Paxton Smith's valedictorian graduation speech, and that was really inspiring. Can you speak to the concern and honestly fear you have of the recent laws that have either been passed or are about to be passed restricting a woman's right to choose?
So my biggest fear in regards to the heartbeat bill that just went through Texas is that it is uniquely designed to be difficult to reverse. So in the past, what we've seen is states will criminally outlaw abortions after 6 weeks, and then you know, abortion organizations like Planned Parenthood will be able to sue those elected officials and have the court case brought to other courts. And because there's Roe versus Wade protecting Americans, typically abortion rights are able to be reinstated, or at least some of those bills are able to be reversed. But what's unique about this bill is that it allows private citizens completely unrelated to anyone who has gotten an abortion to sue these abortion providers if they perform an abortion after 6 weeks. So that's what's particularly scary to me, because now Planned Parenthood can't go sue the Attorney General anymore.
Right.
They have no way to really fight this practically. And so that's what's terrifying to me. And to any pro-lifers out there, I'm just letting you know right now, one former pro-lifer to current pro-lifers, this legislation will not reduce abortion rates, period, the end. What is going to happen is rich people are going to go to different states and get abortions. People who cannot afford to do that are going to be forced to have children in poverty, even if they were involuntarily impregnated, which is a huge violation of our rights. The government should not be able to force us to carry another human being inside of us, right, against our will. And yeah, if you actually want to see abortion rates go down, not only do we need to implement comprehensive sex education and accessible and free birth control, but we also need to increase the living conditions that we see in Texas and the United States.
Yes.
Because the reality of the situation is that we have turned parenthood into a privilege. We have said, if you know, like a big conservative creator just made this statement, Cam Higby said, if you are broke and don't have finances, don't procreate. Because it is so difficult to have children when you are dealing with financial problems. And I think that that's disgusting. I think that anyone who wants to have a baby should be able to have one. And if you're pro-life, you should agree with that as well. So free healthcare, livable wages, all of those things will reduce the abortion rate as well.
That was so well put. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh no, it's heartbreaking. It really is, because like, and it doesn't make sense to me that they say they're pro-life, because women are going to die if they have to perform abortions themselves too. Like
100%.
It's something out of A Handmaid's Tale. It's disgusting to me, and
yeah,
it's really concerning.
It really is. And it's frustrating too, because Republicans know that they really have a carrot on a stick here with their voters. They know that they will never fully ban abortion, because I mean, Texas has been a red state for a long time. Clearly they're against abortion. They could have outright banned abortion, period, the end, from 0 weeks to 9 months. They could have just banned the whole thing, but they never will, because they constantly need the threat of abortion to manipulate Republican voters into voting against their best interest. Yes. And if you are a pro-life Republican voter, if that is your one topic that is making you go to the polls, I hope that you know that you are just being openly manipulated for something that you will never get.
Wow, I never looked at it that way. And it makes so much sense. It's a political tool. It's political manipulation at its best. And speaking of Texas politics, what do you think will happen in the next election? Do you think that Texas will turn blue in the next 10 years? And like, how can we fight? How can other people from different states like Pennsylvania help Texas turn blue, in your opinion? And how can we talk to people in Texas?
Well, I would say, I know it's boring as hell, but just phone banking, because, you know, the governor is obviously an important role, but not the most important role. There are more local elections that are very, very important if we want to turn the state blue. And then additionally, I really do think that Gen Z in Texas and in some of these southern states will make a huge wave, similar to how they did in the 2020 election. I think we'll continue to see more of that. This is the most progressive generation that this country has seen in a very long time. And so if you are already politically active and you are in Gen Z, I would encourage you to get your friends involved as well, because it is incredibly important.
Yes, and I have a lot of hope that Texas will turn blue. I think our generation will do it. I don't know if Beto O'Rourke is going to run for governor. Like who do you want to run for governor or even Senate in 2024? Like who do you see as someone who could carry the mantle of the Democratic Party and beat Republicans?
I don't know. I haven't put too much thought into it because I moved to California quite some time ago, and I'm planning on staying here. So I'm probably going to become a permanent resident of California.
Oh,
which
congrats.
is frustrating because thank you. Which is it's a bit frustrating though, because I do also feel guilty. You know, I feel like a lot of left-leaning people are kind of fleeing Texas, and that's kind of just leaving the people there who can't leave the state. And so, yeah, I haven't put too much thought into the 2024 election, but one thing I do know for sure is that Abbott needs to get out. I mean, if his lack of empathy, him and Ted Cruz's lack of empathy during the natural disaster that hit Texas, that doesn't tell you something, then I don't know what will.
Definitely, yeah. And yeah, definitely. And I guess leaving here on a hope of note, I want our listeners to phone bank in the 2022 midterms, and we will flip Texas blue. We will do it. We will.
Yes.
Do it. And thank you for joining us today. Oh my gosh, you are amazing. I really want you to run for office one day.
Thank you.
I hope in Texas too.
I don't know. I feel like I've posted too many booty pics on Instagram to ever like run for office.
No, girl boss. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. What can I say?
No, our generation will still vote for you. That actually might be good. Like,
I know. Maybe I'll get some extra votes. Like maybe they'll hate my policies, but they'll like my caboose. You know.
Right. That's how we win Republican white men, I guess.
True. Literally just the caboose. But yeah.
All right, Victoria, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Have a good one.